All right, I will now call to order the meeting of the Omaha Planning Board. The Planning Board members that are here today are David Rosacker, Michael Pate, Jeff Moore, Patrick Morris, Sidney Franklin, and I am Christine Carnes, Vice Chair. Members of the city staff that are in attendance today are Dave Fanslaw, Planning Director, Eric England, Acting Assistant Planning Director, Mike Carter, Acting Current Planning Manager, Robert LaRocco, Planning Board Administrator, Jennifer Taylor of the City Law Department, and Lisa Agins, Recording Secretary. Our rules of procedure are as follows. Notice of this hearing has been published. Copies of today's agenda are located on the table in front of us. You are welcome to come down and pick one up. The cases on the consent agenda will be heard first. Consent cases are perceived by the Planning Board to be non-controversial, have already been heard, or been recommended for layover, and therefore will be read and voted on without the opportunity for your testimony. If you wish to testify, you may remove the case from the consent agenda. When each consent case is read, I will ask if anyone wants the case removed. If you do, please stand up and say so, and the case will be removed. This case will then be heard in the order in which it appears on the regular agenda after we go through the consent cases. When the case is heard, you will have the opportunity to come to the podium, clearly state your name and address, enter it on the sign-in sheet, and give your testimony at that time. When hearing cases on the regular agenda, the board will first hear from the applicant, and after the applicant states their case, we will hear from the proponents, and then we will hear from the opponents. After both sides are heard, the public hearing will be closed and no additional testimony will be permitted unless a board member requests additional information. When at the podium, please clearly state your name, address, and whom you are representing for the record, and enter it on the sign-in sheet. Your testimony is very important to us. In the interest of time and courtesy to others, please be short and to the point. We will try to limit each case to 10 minutes. Those directly involved in the case, please speak first. We request that large groups select a spokesperson to represent that group, therefore eliminating repetitive testimony. When giving testimony, please provide new information and try not to repeat what has been previously said. We do ask that all speakers and others be treated with courtesy and with respect. In that regard, please remain silent while seated and please turn off your cell phones. Our decision to approve, deny, or continue a case made here today will be forwarded to the City Council for another public hearing and final disposition by the City Council. Conditional use permits are an exception to this rule. The board's decision made here today on conditional use permits are final and not forwarded to the City Council. Lastly, upon the advice of the Law Department, all communications to the board members from attorneys or other interested parties should be transmitted through the Planning Department so that they are made a part of the public record. The department will then transmit all that information to the board as well as to the rest of the public. Rezoning matters are an exception to this rule. A current copy of the Nebraska Open Meetings Act can be found in a white binder on the east wall of this room. Before I start with the consent cases, there is one change to the agenda. Case number 9 has been withdrawn. Okay, so I will start with the consent cases. Agenda item number 10, case C10-20-021, C12-20-022. The applicant is Arden Investments, LLC, on consent for layover. The request is preliminary plat approval of Flanagan Point, a subdivision outside city limits, with rezoning from AG to DR, R4, and MU. The location is northeast of 180th and 4th Streets. Would anyone like to see this removed from consent? Seeing none. Agenda item number 12, case C10-20-024. The applicant is Joe Seaman. It's on for approval. The request is rezoning from R435 to R4. The location is 4323 South 33rd Street. Would anyone like to see this removed from the consent agenda? Okay, seeing none. Case number 13. Agenda item number 13, case C10-20-025. The applicant is Standard Historic Owner, LLC, on consent for approval. The request is rezoning from DS to CBD. The property is located within an ACI 1 overlay district. The location is 500 South 18th Street. Would anyone like to see this removed from the consent agenda? Okay, agenda item number 14, case C10-20-026. The applicant is 200 Third Plaza LLC, on consent for approval. The request is approval of the MCC Major Commercial Corridor Overlay District. Location is 1402 and 1404 North 203rd Street. Would anyone like to see this removed? Seeing none, agenda item number 15, case C10-20-027. The applicant is Gary Bowen, on consent for approval. The request is rezoning from GC to R5. Location is 6052 Country Club Road. Would anyone like to see this removed from consent? Seeing none, agenda item number 16, case C10-20-028. Applicant is Julie Roy for Maya Montessori School, LLC, on consent for approval. The request is rezoning from R6 and R7 to R7. Property is located within an ACI 1 overlay district. The location is 518 South 38th Street. Would anyone like to see this removed? Seeing none. Agenda item number 17, case C10-20-029. The applicant is 3347 Ames Avenue, LLC, on consent for approval. The request is rezoning from R535 to LC with approval of the MCC Major Commercial Corridor Overlay District. The location is 3343 and 3347 Ames Avenue. Would anyone like to have this removed from the consent agenda? Seeing none, agenda item number 19, case C10-20-035. The applicant is HBI LLC, on consent for approval. The request is rezoning from R435 to R4. The location is 2886 Bowman Avenue. Would anyone like to have this removed? Seeing none, agenda item number 20, case C8-20-033. The applicant is Tim Jacoby, on consent for approval, and the request is to allow a heliport in a GO district. Property is located in an ACI 2 overlay district. Location is 8200 West Dodge Road. Would anyone like to have this removed? Seeing none, agenda item number 21, case C8-20-034. Applicant is JSJ Enterprises, LLC, on consent for approval. The request is approval of a special use permit to allow general offices in the GI district. A portion of the property is located in the Flood Fringe Overlay District. Location 7525 North 101st Street. Would anyone like to have this removed? Seeing none. Agenda item number 22, case C7-20-031. The applicant is Frank Krejci, on consent for approval. The request is approval of a conditional use permit to allow surface parking in the CC district. The location is 391 North 243rd Street. Would anyone like to have this removed from consent? Seeing none, the final case is agenda item number 23, case C7-20-032. Applicant is Joseph Dempsey, on for approval. Request approval of a conditional use permit to allow auto sales in the CBD. Property is located within an ACI 1 overlay district. The location is 2621 Farnham Street. Would anyone like to have this removed from the consent agenda? Seeing none, do we have a motion?
Move to approve consent agenda items 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 19, 20, 21, 22, and 23.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Lisa, will you please call the roll?
Pate?
Yes.
Moore?
Yes.
Morris?
Yes.
Franklin?
Yes.
Rosacker?
Yes.
Carnes?
Yes.
Motion approved.
And move to lay over item 10 on the agenda. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Lisa, will you please take the vote?
Rosacker?
Yes.
Pate?
Yes.
Moore?
Yes.
Morris?
Yes.
Franklin?
Yes.
Carnes?
Yes.
Motion approved.
Okay, so the cases on the consent agenda have now been disposed of. If you were here for one of those cases, you are welcome to leave. Or you're welcome to stay and listen to the others if you'd like. All right, we will start with the regular agenda. First, the administrative cases. These agenda items are administrative only, so there's no opportunity for public testimony. Agenda item number 1, case C12-19-178. The applicant is James T. Smith Sr. The request is final plat approval of Ponca Hills Estates, a subdivision outside city limits. The location is northwest of Northern Hills Drive and 66th Street. May we hear from the city, please?
Yeah, this final plat for Ponca Hills Estates came before the planning board on September 4th and approved by city council at the October 22nd meeting. The final plat is consistent with the approved preliminary plat. The applicant has provided approval from the Nebraska Department of Environmental Quality for septic systems for the proposed acreage lots. Staff recommends approval of the final plat subject to submittal of an acceptable final subdivision agreement prior to city council.
Any questions or comments from the board? Do we have a motion?
Motion to approve the final plat subject to submittal of an acceptable final subdivision agreement prior to forwarding to the request to the city council.
We have a motion and a second. Lisa, will you please take the vote?
Moore?
Yes.
Morris?
Yes.
Franklin?
Yes.
Rosacker?
Yes.
Pate?
Yes.
Carnes?
Yes.
Motion approved.
Agenda item number 2, case C10-15-299, C12-15-300. Applicant is Western Springs Land Corp. The request is final plat approval of Shadowview Village, lots 1 through 4, outlots A through D, a subdivision outside city limits with rezoning from AG to MU. Location is northwest of South HWS Cleveland Boulevard and West Center Road. May we hear from the city, please?
Yeah, so this request goes back several years. There have been a few times when planning board and city council have seen either the preliminary plat or the final plat. Most recently, the final plat for the entire development came to planning board back in February 2017 and was approved by city council this past October. But that final plat was never recorded. The applicant met with city staff and has decided to turn this into a phased development. So the final plat before you is for the first phase, which includes 4 lots and 3 outlots, and it encompasses the approximate eastern 2/3 of the site. There are just a few small items that need to be addressed before forwarding this first phase final plat to city council. One of those being locating a proposed monument sign in outlot A within its own outlot, and then updating the Mylars with the necessary no-build easement along the boulevard. Staff recommends approval of the rezoning from AG to MU, subject to submittal of an acceptable mixed-use development agreement prior to city council, and approval of the final plat subject to the 3 conditions in the recommendation report.
Any questions or comments from the board? Do I have a motion?
Motion for approval of the rezoning from AG to MU, subject to submittal of an acceptable mixed-use development agreement prior to forwarding to city council, and approval of the final plat subject to the 3 conditions in the recommendation report.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Lisa, will you please take the vote?
Morris?
Yes.
Franklin? Yes. Rosacker?
Yes.
Pate?
Yes.
Moore?
Yes.
Carnes?
Yes.
Motion approved.
Okay, agenda item number 3, case C10-19-245, C12-19-246. The applicant is Cameron General Contractors. The request is preliminary plat approval of Hanover Falls Center, a subdivision outside the city limits with rezoning from AG to DR, R6, and MU. This was laid over from the December 4th, 2019 meeting. Location is northwest of 156th and State Streets. May we hear from the applicant, please?
My name is Kyle Hazy with E&A Consulting Group, 10909 Mill Valley Road in Omaha. I'm representing the applicant, along with myself, Clay Buell, with the developer and applicant is here as well to make himself available for any questions that you might have. The property we are discussing today is located at the northeast corner of 156th and State Street. It is currently zoned ag. The property as a whole, as outlined here in the orange, is 45.2 acres. The surrounding zoning for the property is directly to the north. There's R4. To the east is R4 as well. To the south, there's a mix of MU and R5 zoning. And then to the west, there is R6 zoning as well. We are requesting today, with you today, for a rezoning of the property. We're looking for R6, the north, shown up top. That is approximately 9.4 acres. The mixed use is shown in the purple, the two different locations here. That's approximately 20.2 acres of MU, and then the preserved space in the middle is 10.4 acres, and we're requesting DR zoning for that area. This corner right now is designated as a mixed-use corner in the future land use plan. Our current site plan shows a mix of uses as shown on the site plan. We have apartments here on the north, which would be for the R6 zoning. These apartments are 3-story apartments with garages under. There's 205 units proposed for the site with a mix of 1 and 2 bedroom units. There would be a couple studio units. 5% of those 1 bedrooms would be studio units as well. It includes a clubhouse with a pool, as shown here. These would be market rate apartments with rents between $800 and $1,400 for your monthly rent. The elevations for those apartments, as you see here, they have the garages down below, and there'll be a mix of stone, wood shingle sidings. That is the front elevation. Here is an example of the rear and the side as well.
How many units?
205. For the rest of the site, we have a mix of retail and office throughout the site. There are no other confirmed users on the site as far as for the retail and office goes. The apartments are the only use that we have set, and with a set developer for that site.
So you're showing it, looks like a big box there right in the middle,
Correct.
but there's no
There's no set user for that
set
right now.
user for that. Those are tough to find and locate today, so if you don't get a big box user, is there a contingent plan for how you're gonna use that?
Well, it all depends on the market and what user comes into play. And if that user, if we find another user that isn't a big box for that area, we'd have to come back through and probably do a major amendment for the site and come back through planning board and city council again. On November 25th at Concordia High School, we had a neighbor meeting to discuss the plans. We had plenty of neighbors show up. Many of the main concerns were traffic and improvements to 156th Street, and then having apartments within the development and adjacent to the existing homes as well. We discussed how this development can drive the improvements to 156th and State Street, with the developer contributing to those improvements as warranted by the traffic study, and that these are high-end market rate apartments with a manager on site. A reputable company would be developing and managing this company, and with the rates that they have for the apartments, they should make good neighbors. As part of the other city comments, based on what our original submittal had, one of the comments was Road D, which I think would have been within your guys' packet that you received. We originally had it just curving towards the left and connecting to HWS Cleveland Boulevard. This site plan shows the change connecting to the loop road and connecting to these 2 lots in the southwest corner.
Has the city seen that? Or is this the first time you've ever seen it?
First time.
Okay.
We did have, so we talking with Public Works, this is kind of the layout that they had suggested we look at, and we'll continue to work with them with any changes they'd like to see going forward with that. With that, I'll make myself available for any future questions that you guys might have.
Okay, thank you. Any other proponents? Please come forward.
We're again.
Okay, we'll call those in a minute. Any other proponents?
My name is Clay Buell. I live at 900 Twin Ridge Road in Lincoln. I'm representing Cameron General Contractors, and just want to state the case that I'm in support of it. We're, like Kyle mentioned, we're focused in on the apartments being the first part developed of the overall mixed-use area, and I'm open to any questions you have.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other proponents? Okay, are there any opponents who wish to speak? Come on forward. Please state your name and address.
Oops. My name is Kathy Levine. I live at 8905 North HWS Cleveland Boulevard. I wanted to leave that picture up there but to show you where you see the little round circle. I live right up from these apartments. Like I would live right up from these apartments, right about here, and then a little bit further north of that is our park. What we feel like this is just entirely too much density for our neighborhood. We see people from the apartments that are going to be coming through our neighborhoods, walking their dogs. All of a sudden, we don't have the infrastructure for that, and we really have enjoy the quietness of our little neighborhood right now. The infrastructure, as far as like the Bennington Fire Department, doesn't even have a ladder truck. So I think bringing 3-story apartments out into that neighborhood, we're not prepared for that. We're not ready for that. Also, when we saw this, and you ask about the big box, it appears very much like a grocery store. And straight west of that potential big box is a retirement community. And they have spent a lot of their own money putting together the roads and making it a very nice little community. And now we're talking about something that would have lights up all night long in that little corner. So the density, the infrastructure, the other things, we just asked if there was any kind of an impact study. How's this going to impact our neighborhood? And now we're talking about, there's a lot of people out there that feel like, yeah, this is great. We need more businesses out toward that area. But the reason they want more businesses is they just put a gas station, a Casey's right on 156. Well, it's backed up all the time. You can't get through. Well, we're just talking about putting more people out there right now. So we figure 400 people, I guess you could, if there's going to be 200 apartments. Now we have another 400 people fighting just to get through 156th and State, which is 156th and State, which is stop signs, which, by the way, also has some flooding issues. I think that's about all I can add right now. We really feel like it's way too much, and that we would like to see the city planning board at least take the time to see what our neighborhood's like, what congestion we have now, and to take into consideration that the neighbors are, some of them expressed a lot of concern about having a 3-story apartment looking into their backyards. It's right against our neighborhood. Thank you.
How do you feel about the rest of the commercial development, the mixed-use development there?
I think that there could be some commercial development there. I think that there could be some places that would fit really good with our neighborhood. I mean, groomers and, daycare and some places that we're not against development of the corner. We just feel like we really were shocked to see all of these apartments. That's not something we anticipated at all. And like I said, a gas station, okay. A grocery store, that's a completely different animal, if you ask me. I mean, now we're talking about pests and smell and, all kinds of things that can impact your neighborhood. So.
Yeah, well, there are a lot of grocery stores, supermarkets around that are on corners next to neighborhoods that, to my knowledge, really haven't had many problems with regards to some of the issues that you just raised there. So I don't know that that's
Well,
an
I
issue.
just feel like those grocery stores need to stay on the main corridors, which is typically how we've seen them built in the past. And my point to some of the neighbors is, in the neighborhood app, is we're 15 minutes away from about any grocery store that you could want to go to already. Is that necessary? I don't believe it is. And they haven't been able to sell anyone on that. So we don't know. I guess if this gets approved, we have no idea what's going to be going into our neighborhood.
Thank you.
Anyway,
Thanks,
thank
Kathy.
you so
Thanks,
much.
Kathy.
Any other opponents?
I'd just like to add something to what she said.
Come on up. Name and address, please.
My name is Shayna Bryant. My address is 8821 North 157th Street, Bennington 68007. So to add to that, the only thing my concern would be is when they met with our neighborhood, the meeting that they were referring to, they made it clear that the only land that's supposedly to date sold is for the apartments. They have yet to have any kind of purpose for this multi-use. They have a great plan, but what happens whenever nobody buys into that, as you were suggesting earlier, and they come back and they ask for rezoning to build more apartments? Now we're not only at 204, we are beyond that. So I don't want to see that happen. That's the congestion is a very big problem for me, so.
Did you say, what was your address?
8821 North 157th Street.
Oh, okay, I thought you said 187, so you're close to that neighborhood.
Yeah, so I live, actually, right about 3 houses up in here.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other opponents? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. Any questions or comments from the board? May we hear from the city, please? Kyle, do you want to rebut anything?
I guess to kind of reiterate, we are not sure what the rest of this development is going to be. Hopefully, once we get the mixed-use zoning in place, we have that plan in place, something is a little bit more marketable, and they can maybe get some more attraction to that corner. As far as the what we've done with the site plan for the apartments right now, along the along Bondinson Street, that there is as much of a 20-foot drop in elevation from Bondinson down to those apartments, so they won't be as towering above the neighbors as maybe is perceived. That does vary. Along HWS Cleveland, it is 10, and then as we get down to this corner, it drops down to about 6. But it varies to there, so that helps a little bit with what they can maybe see from those apartments and the fear of looking over those neighbors. We also have along HWS Cleveland Boulevard, we have a minimum of 35-foot setback. And on this corner on Bondinson, our setback is 60 feet from the edge of right-of-way. And then in this portion, we're 110 feet back from edge of right-of-way. So we're providing that buffer, not only from elevation, but landscape screening as well to help with those neighbors' concerns.
Thank you.
Seen a couple of these come through where, you start off, the first picture that we see has the nice retail, and like Mike pointed out, those are really hard to fill up these days. Has there been discussion, if that doesn't work, would you guys do more apartments like the woman said, or would you do more like,
That
has there
hasn't
been
been
talk about self-storage or?
No, that has not been
Okay.
part of our discussion at all. Right now, we have that zone for the mixed use with the hope that we can get that from the retail side of it and not more apartments.
You plan to sell off the parcels that are, the outlots and the parcels that are in there?
No plans to sell them off.
No plans.
Thank you. Right. Any other questions? Okay. May we hear from, you have to be called up by one of the members of the board.
I want to maybe address one more concern that I forgot. They had mentioned concerns about maybe walking pets and talking with the developer for the apartment sites. They have provided some open green space for those pets, and they will be stationed with pet waste management facilities as well.
Thank you. Come on up, ma'am.
I only just want to
I'm
mention.
sorry, name
one
and
of the-
address, please.
Oh, I'm sorry, my name is Kathy Levine. I'm at 8905 North 8905 North HWS Cleveland Boulevard. The entryway, the only other thing I wanted to bring up is the 156, where they're planning the main entryway off 156, the ingress and egress, that's into our neighborhood. That's what we built, that's what we have maintained, that's what we have planted and continue to maintain that. And I can see that there might be, with a lot of traffic, there's probably going to be repairs and things that are going to happen to that entryway, because it's all of a sudden going to get a lot more use than just us coming into the neighborhood. So if you look on 156 and you see those two little islands, it's really quite beautifully done. And then, you know, back in here is where we have our sign, and then our trees and that. But I would hope that they're going to make some type of an offer to maintain that in the future, because I know it's just going to get a lot of use with a lot of people coming through there. So I'm concerned about that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, may we hear from the city, please?
Sure. Yeah, so there's quite a few comments in the recommendation report regarding the north-south quarter-mile access. You know, from the proposal that's in your packet does show a cul-de-sac that terminated at those two western commercial lots, as Kyle had mentioned. And one of our conditions was to connect that quarter-mile access from State Street to that, I guess, the main mixed-use east-west street. I think it's called Street A. So that was a condition that would have to be done before going to City Council. So I am pleased to see that the applicant has already begun those design, and we'll have to have further coordination on exactly where that road goes. But that was a big issue that we feel is very important. Along with that, it goes into the quarter mile office and commercial for those two lots extending beyond the quarter mile. We are supportive of that waiver due to that large natural drainage way. So as we've discussed, there was a similar preliminary plat that was approved back in 2006 for a similar mixed-use project that ultimately did not come forward with the final plat, but there was that preliminary approval 14 years ago. Regarding the intersection at large, the 156 in State is a 60-acre potential mixed-use intersection. There are currently a little less than 12 existing mixed-use acres on the southwest corner. With this proposal, there would be a little more than 20 acres of mixed use, and then the 9 acres for the multifamily. So the amount of office and commercial that is being proposed is consistent with the city's master plan. Also tying into that, this size center for 60 acres could allow up to 500 multiple family apartment units at the intersection, either within the mixed-use area, so kind of right at the intersection, or adjacent to that mixed-use portion. So they're currently proposing 205 units. The entire intersection at whole, the master plan would support up to 500 units.
Eric?
Yeah.
Does the total square foot or acreage that you talked about include the green space that's in there too?
No, it does not.
It does not,
No.
okay.
No, the entire site is 45 acres, I believe, 20 acres in mixed use, 9 acres of the apartments, and the remaining 15, 16 acres would be right-of-way, outlots, drainage way,
Okay.
combination of those. I don't think there's much else that I want to address besides maybe just the procedure in general. This is a preliminary plat, you know, for the benefit of the neighbors. This is a preliminary plat approval. It will need to go to City Council, and then a final plat would also come back to Planning Board and ultimately on to City Council. City Council is the governing body that would ultimately approve the platting and the zoning. If there were to be a change in the future, if they can't get anybody to go into that big box or some of the other lots, they could request a major amendment to the mixed-use agreement or a rezoning that would have to come back through Planning Board and City Council again. So I'm not saying that they're considering that, but there is that public process along the way as we continue forward here, or if there's any substantial changes in the future. So unless you have any questions for me, staff recommends approval of the rezoning from AG to DR, R6, and MU, subject to submittal of an acceptable mixed-use development agreement, and approval of the preliminary plat subject to the 19 conditions listed in your recommendation report.
Thank you, Eric. Any questions or comments from the board? Do we have a motion?
Motion to approve rezoning from AG to DR, R6 and MU, subject to submittal of an acceptable mixed-use development agreement, and the approval of the preliminary plat, subject to the 19 issues noted in the staff report.
We have a motion and a second. Lisa, will you please call the vote?
Franklin?
Yes.
Rosacker?
Yes.
Pate?
Yes.
Moore?
Yes.
Morris?
Yes.
Carnes?
Yes.
Motion approved.
Thank you. Agenda items number 4 and 5 will be taken together.
Thank you.
Agenda item number 4 is case C10-19-251, C12-19-252. The applicant is Woodsonia Acquisitions LLC. The request is preliminary plat approval of Lake Livin, a subdivision outside city limits with rezoning from AG to R7. This was laid over from the January 8th, 2020 meeting. The location is northwest of 168th and 4th Streets. Agenda item number 5 is case C11-19-255. The applicant is Woodsonia Acquisitions LLC. The request is approval of a PUD, Planned Unit Development Overlay District, laid over again from the January 8th, 2020 meeting. The location is northwest of 168th and 4th Streets. May we hear from the applicant, please?
Yes, Madam Chair, members of the board, Larry Jobin, 11440 West Center Road, appearing on behalf of the applicant. With me today is the applicant and actually the entire development team, so if there's any questions. If you recall, the PUD portion of this case at the last meeting was already recommended for layover. And so the real issue that we had as far as the preliminary plat and the rezoning really related to how these 5 lots interacted with the proposed development. So I'll address that with respect to the preliminary plat and the zoning. We agreed at that time just to lay that matter over because the PUD matter was laid over anyway, so might as well have them heard concurrently. So that's why we're here on the preliminary plat and the zoning. And then I'll get into the PUD issues as well. So with respect to the PUD, that was laid over, recommended for layover to meet with the planning staff to really determine how this property will relate to HWS Cleveland. We have come to an agreement as to how that will relate, and it was to add really a front door element to the HWS Cleveland side of the buildings by providing patios and also having sidewalks connect with the building to the trail system that runs along HWS Cleveland. Also, so the pedestrian connection really between the buildings and the sidewalk at HWS Cleveland. Also, there was landscaping and public seating that was added as well along on HWS Cleveland. So just to get your bearings here, if you remember, this was going to be phase 1 right here on the outside of the ring road. And then this was phase 1. Kind of backwards. This is phase 2. So phase 1 now has 315 units in phase 1, and phase 2 has 268 units for a total of 583 units in the entire development. So I wanted to talk a little bit about these 5 lots and how they relate to the proposed development. Silverthorne, the builder that was here last time, he is no longer building in this area, which was fine. We agreed he's going to build in other areas of the development, so he's okay with that. We're okay with that. So that issue's been resolved. What we did, if you recall, we talked about the grade change between those 5 lots and the proposed development. And if you recall, it was about a 12-foot grade differential between the backyards and where the buildings sit. So if the buildings are 47 feet in height at the peak, not the way they're measured under the code, they're about 47 feet. So if you take off 12 feet, they're only about 35 feet. Well, a 2-story house effectively is 35 feet, 32 to 35, depending on the roof line. So what we did is just to get your bearings here. So this is lot 84, 83, 82, 81, and 80. And remember, this is the detention basin, and we agreed to do landscaping around here. I think the gentleman that has this house, lot 80, showed up last time. I believe he's here today as well. And we show here that his view of the lake is really unimpaired. So looking from the furthest lot here, 84, this is effectively the view. Is that showing up clear enough for you all? So that is the view from lot 84 looking towards the lake.
Are we looking southwest there, Larry?
This would be southwest, correct? Yeah, a little bit south, not directly west. That's pretty close to directly west. Yeah, it's probably pretty close to directly west. So the lake's over here, of course, and here's the backyard again. This,
Excuse me, so which lot are we, is that view from?
that's this one, the farthest one. This is the one that's probably most impacted by the views, at least to the lake. But again, as you can see, you still can see the lake. And then as you move further to the west, lot 83, which is the next one here, right here, this is the view. And these were all shot based upon, I believe, from a drone, so the elevations and such are really to scale, and they're exactly what it'll look like. It's amazing the technology today. 15 years ago, we couldn't have done this. We'd just be kind of pretending here, but this is pretty amazing. Huh? Yeah, this is from the deck.
Okay.
Yeah, and the prior one was
Yeah.
too.
All right,
So
thank you.
this is from the deck. So this is lot 83 looking toward the lake. Obviously, you can see more of the lake as you move further that direction, right? And then this is from lot 82, which is the next lot. And again, what you see here is more of the lake and less of the multifamily project. And then we get to the next lot over, lot 81. And as you look towards the lake, you can't see the apartments at all. And then you have lot 80, which is the last one on that street. And again, completely unimpaired view of the lake. So really, of the 5 lots, there's only these 3 really that see the buildings, if you will, looking west. Obviously, if you look south and east, you'd see them, right? But as far as any kind of view corridor towards the lake, it's relatively unimpacted or unimpaired. And if you recall, the idea was to do just that. I mean, most of the other buildings are 4 stories in height, but the building on this side or the north side is only 3 stories in height. And it was designed that way to not impact the view of the neighbors and try to lower it. And again, with the great elevation change, it really effectively looks like 2-story building or an apartment, or a 2-story house that would be situated there. I do have some other renderings. This just kind of shows the amenities. This is the swimming pool. This is looking towards the pool within the development. This is the change that we made with respect to the PUD. You notice that the patios and the doors, so we really wanted to make the apartments along HWS Cleveland look like the front, not the back. And so that's what they are now. Of course, these all have patios on the first floor, and they also have a sidewalk that connects to the trail system. Let's see if I have any others that... This one's kind of an overview looking to the east from the lake. And you can see, remember, the grade change at the highest point from 168th Street down to HWS Cleveland is about a 50-foot drop. So it's a pretty significant grade change from 168th Street down to the lake. This is just another view looking southeast from the lake as well towards the project. And again, this is another vantage point with respect to the PUD, showing that the front of the buildings now orient, well, the back of the buildings look like the front of the buildings and they orient towards HWS Cleveland. So with that, we appreciate the recommendation from the planning department. It's a favorable one with respect to the preliminary plat, the zoning, and the PUD. There are a couple waivers that we have to get from the zoning board of appeals, so we'll go there next. But they're also supported by the planning board. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions and respond to any opposition as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other proponents who wish to speak? Are there any opponents who wish to speak? Okay, seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. May we hear from the city, please? Agenda item number 4 first,
Yes.
and then 5.
Yeah, I don't have much to say for the plat. Very minimal changes, if any, to item number 4. We did see the most changes when the applicant and the development team met with city staff to discuss some of the reasons for the layover at last month's meeting. As Larry described, they have made some substantial changes to those ground floor units fronting HWS Cleveland Boulevard, and that is what we are looking at in order to support bringing those buildings closer to the boulevard. So we are pleased with that, that change and modification in those building facades. There are, Larry had mentioned the buffer yard waiver to the stormwater detention area. That is the only buffer yard waiver, and that is supported because that is unbuildable, and they are doing heavily landscaping along that side. Perimeter parking lot landscaping is being reduced to 10 feet in many portions of the site. If it was office commercial, 10 feet would be allowed by code, but because it's a multifamily project and there's public streets going throughout the site, the zoning code usually requires 35 feet, which is unreasonable and not the intent of that provision. So we are supporting a reduction there. There's one minor element that'll need to be adjusted, and that's just some relocation of some dumpsters in those enclosures, but very minor in nature. So I'll make a recommendation for agenda item number 4, and you can have your vote, or if you have questions, and then we can come back to the PUD. So for agenda item number 4, staff recommends approval of the rezoning from AG to R7, approval of the preliminary plat subject to the 17 conditions listed in the recommendation report.
Any questions or comments on agenda item number 4? Do we have a motion?
Motion for the approval of the rezoning from AG to R7, approval of the preliminary plat subject to the 17 following conditions.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Lisa, will you please call the vote?
Rosacker?
Yes.
Pate?
I'm not wild about the number of units, but I'll vote yes.
Okay. Moore?
Yes.
Morris?
Yes.
Franklin?
Yes.
Carnes?
Yes.
Motion approved.
Okay, and then agenda item number 5.
For the PUD, staff recommends approval of the PUD subject to meeting the 3 conditions in the recommendation report prior to forwarding to City Council.
Any questions or comments from the board? Do we have a motion?
Motion for approval of the PUD, subject to meeting the 3 conditions in the recommendation report.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Lisa, will you please call the vote?
Pate?
Yes.
Moore?
Yes.
Morris?
Yes.
Franklin?
Yes.
Rosacker?
Yes.
Carnes?
Yes.
Motion approved.
Thank you. All right, agenda item number 6, case C3-20-017. The applicant is the Planning Department on behalf of the City of Omaha. The request is the approval of the disposal of city-owned property to an interested party. Location is 3004 and 3004 and a half V Street. May we hear from the applicant, please?
Hello, Autumn Evans, City of Omaha Planning Department. Item number 6, C3-20-017. We received an application from Southside Redevelopment Corporation to build a single-family home. The lot will need to be replatted and possibly some waivers. I do have a little aerial here. Seems, oh, okay. There we go, thank you. I've used this before. The lot is located at 300, actually it's 2 parcels, correct myself, 3004 V Street and 3004 1/2 V Street. And the lot is located right off of 30th Street and V. closer image. And so 3004, 1/2 is this parcel here, 3004 is the other parcel, and it will need to be replatted into one lot, one buildable lot. This is a disposal of city-owned property to an interested party under community development law to support affordable housing in the South Side Terrace, Indian Hills neighborhood, which is also in relation to the Choice Neighborhood grants that we have received to relocate the South Side Terrace apartments. And I'm here to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Autumn.
Okay, thanks.
Do we have any other proponents? Do we have any opponents? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. May we hear from the city, please?
Staff recommends approval.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from the board? Have a motion and a second. Lisa, will you please call the vote?
Moore?
Yes.
Morris?
Yes.
Franklin? Yes. Rosacker?
Yes.
Pate?
Yes.
Carnes?
Yes.
Motion approved.
Thank you. Agenda item number 7, case C3-20-018. The applicant is Planning Department on behalf of the City of Omaha. The request is approval of the disposal of city-owned property to an interested party, and the location is north of 214th and Grover Streets. May we hear from the applicant, please?
Yeah, so I'll start with this. We do have members of the requesting party here available as well, I believe. The city received a request to purchase this 6-acre property. To give a little bit of history, this was a holding pond when it was part of, I guess formerly of Douglas County Planning and Zoning. The city of Elkhorn, when it was no longer used as a holding pond, used the site for filling from street projects, which Public Works continued the process up until 2014, when it was capped with several feet of dirt. The city has entered into access agreements last year for both the industrial facility located to the north and the prospective buyer. So we will coordinate any environmental remediation efforts that are necessary before the transfer of the property. It will require an appraisal. Outside of that, the zoning is currently GI. The future land use map designates this area for low-density residential, so the city will proactively rezone the property to DR before any transfer of the property. The interested party would have to come through and do further platting and rezoning efforts for any future development of the site. So that is all I have at this time. If you have any questions, I'm available.
Do we have any other proponents who wish to speak?
Good afternoon. Eleanor Homan, 317 North 92nd Street is my resident address. I'm with Pravada, the developer on the property directly to the south of this 6.8-acre piece. And then on the other side of it is Merck Industries. And our interest in the property is primarily to protect our residential customers who are going to be abutting this property. We did become aware that Merck was doing some testing on this piece of property, which will, as this progresses, if it progresses, we'll be interested in seeing what came back on their reports. But our initial interest is mainly just to protect our project and just try to find out what the interests are of other people in the neighborhood.
Thank you. Any other proponents who wish to speak? Are there any opponents who wish to speak? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. Do we have any questions or comments from the board? Okay. Did you have anything else to say, Eric?
Just recommend approval.
Thank you.
Approval. Second.
We have motion and a second. Lisa, will you please call the vote?
Morris?
Yes.
Franklin?
Yes.
Rosacker?
Yes.
Pate?
Yes.
Moore?
Yes.
Carnes?
Yes.
Motion approved.
Okay, agenda item number 8. Ms. Franklin, are you recusing yourself on this one? Please let the record show that Sydney Franklin recused herself on this agenda item number 8. Case C3-19-088. The applicant is Planning Department on behalf of the City of Omaha. The request is approval of an amendment to the 2019 Consolidated Action Plan, and the location is the City of Omaha. May we hear from the applicant, please?
Hi, this is Lisa Smith with the Omaha Planning Department, and I'm here for item C3-19088, the approval of the amendment to the 2019 Consolidated Action Plan. This amendment is to reallocate $1.384 million in community development block grant funding that we received from the sale of the OSBN building, and we will reallocate that to some new projects, which are the Charles Street Improvement Street Project, the Goodwin's Barbershop Facade Improvement Project, the Urban Indian Health Coalition Supportive Services Building Rehabilitation Project, and the Rental Readiness Program. This amendment would also reallocate $650,000 in unspent home funds, Home Investment Partnerships Program, that we received from Omaha's home consortium partner, the City of Council Bluffs, and we would reallocate that to a new project, the Nobility Point Project, which is a multifamily senior housing project in North Omaha at Highlander. And I'm here to answer any questions you may have about that.
Thank you. Do we have any other proponents? Any other opponents? I'm sorry, any opponents who wish to speak? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. Any questions or comments from the board? May we hear from the city, please?
Recommend approval.
Motion approved.
We have a motion and a second. Lisa, will you please call the vote?
Rosacker?
Yes.
Pate?
Yes.
Moore?
Yes.
Morris?
Yes.
Carnes?
Yes.
Motion approved.
All right, and can we please ask Ms. Franklin to return? Thank you. And let the record reflect that Ms. Franklin is now returning to the meeting. All right, agenda item number 9 was withdrawn. Agenda item number 11, case C12-20-023, the applicant's the City of Omaha. The request is preliminary and final plat approval of Jean Leahy Mall Replat 1, a minor plat inside city limits. The property is located within an ACI 1 overlay district. The location is northeast of 13th and Farnham Streets. May we hear from the applicant, please?
Hi, my name is Chris Koenig with HDR, 1917 South 67th Street. This replat is part of the downtown riverfront project, and specifically the Jean Leahy Mall, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. When the Jean Leahy Mall was developed back in the 70s, they did not go through and replat it as a lot, and so we still have all the right-of-way is in place throughout that whole corridor from 8th up to 13th Street. The challenge we ran into is that for city code to actually build the fountains and buildings that we're proposing on the project site, you cannot build them in city right-of-way. And so the purpose of this plat is essentially to clean that up and replat it so we have just one lot, and so that we can proceed with the development. So that's the reason for this submittal, and I'll walk through, if you like, I just go and walk through the project and kind of give you a brief hit of what's going to be coming as far as additional replats that we plan for this project. So again, the project itself is all 3 parks, Jean Leahy Mall, Lewis and Clark Landing, and Heartland America Park. And so it's a pretty extensive project that is underway right now with the construction in Jean Leahy Mall. And we'll be starting construction in Heartland America Park this spring and Lewis and Clark Landing this fall. So it's going to be moving pretty quickly. And we'll start opening up the project. I'll give you the timeline for that as well. So, and again, this is a joint project between the Omaha Philanthropic Community, the City of Omaha, and then Mecca has been hired for the design and construction contracting, and then as well as the operation of the parks once it proceeds forward. So Jean Leahy Mall itself, again, the big issue was to raise it up. I mean, Jean Leahy Mall was essentially a depressed area, which is good just for walking, but that was about the most you could do down there. It wasn't really that active, and so our purpose is to raise it up to street grade and make it more active, put a vent lawn in there, but also like with 11th Street right in the center is to make that as a pedestrian promenade. So right now, if you're in the old market and you want to go to the Capital District, you have to walk out of your way to do that. So we want to make that more easy and way to do it. And as you can see, there's a large number of trees that'll be included in this planning. And this gives a different proponents that we're talking about. So on the west end, starting at 13th Street, we have one area allocated for a restaurant. That's not part of the project right now. But if in the future, if there's a restaurant or a food court or something like that, that might come into play in the future. There'd be a large event lawn right in the center, and we have been working with the Symphony as far as how this could be planned for any events as well, but also talking to concerts and things like that. On the north side, by the Holland, there's going to be a sculpture garden, and again, we feel that'll play real well with the Holland itself. And then on the south side will be a large children play area, and we want to really make this activated. And then in the center, there'll be a performance pavilion. Then you got 11th Street. And then as it goes toward the east, there'll be what's called the Cascades, which is going to be a big, large play area. So kids will be able to play in the water. And it'll be shallow, but it'll be a real activity. And then the Slides Terrace, those existing 2 slides that are pretty iconic for Gene Leahy Mall, those remain in place. We're just going to augment that. We'll have a small pond area. We'll keep that in play. And then on the east end, there'll be a dog park, another small event lawn. And so that kind of lays out the whole program. And we have some renderings of what it's going to look like. So again, the play area that we're looking at, it's not just going to be a playground with swings and slides. It's going to be something that the kids really can get into and climb around. We've engaged Studio Ludo. They're a nationally recognized firm that really knows how to really activate it for kids and really get them engaged, and so really challenge them. And so it'll be a multi-level area, so they'll be really able to get active into it. So again, we want to make sure that, and also we'll have a lot of area for so essentially it's going to be unsupervised play, so the kids could do whatever they want, but you also have seating area for the parents, so they could sit on the side and watch. Or like me, a grandparent, so you could really not have to get engaged with them. So we really want to activate this area for the kids, and so again, there's more families that are moving downtown, and we want to make this, again, as a play area for everybody in the Omaha area. This is looking at the greenhouse building on the east side of 10th Street. And so we call the area that'll be on the right side of the screen, we call that the Cove. And so you can have rent small boats if you want to motorized boats out there. But again, we're keeping the orange lights that are out there now. Those will be brought back in. And we have been working really close with both the Burlington and the greenhouse building owners as we progress this. And so they've been very engaged and very positive about what we're doing here. And then this is what we're proposing as a pavilion structure. Again, we're working with the Symphony and everybody else and the other people that do programs in the Omaha area to make sure that what we're providing out there can be actually implemented. So again, there'll be, for Gene Leahy Mall, this first plat is from 10th to 13th Street. There'll be a second one that'll be submitted, actually got submitted, and that'll be from 8th to 10th. One of the issues there is that with the greenhouse, there's an agreement in place between the city that was implemented, and they did Gene Leahy Mall, and so we have to address the right-of-way, but in order to do that, it's going to have to be a 2-step process to get that platting done. And so to keep on the timeline for construction, we're going to do it as 2 steps. And then this is looking at the park itself when it's all said and done. And again, when we do plant the trees, we're planting going to be larger trees. But we'll have this is looking to the west, and so you can see the playground, the pavilion. Again, we want it to be a very active space for downtown Omaha. Heartland America Park, again, we're going to fill in a good chunk of the north third of the lake. This was all done back in the 80s as part of the ConAgra development. And one of the big parts of that, and again, you could have a big event lawn. We're working with Omaha and how we lay that out and how we set it up. There's going to be an ice rink along the Farnham Promenade. And so during the summer, you can rollerblade. During the winter, you can ice skate. There'll be an overlook that'll extend out over the river. But one of the things that does require replatting is the Douglas Street extension. Right now, it's really hard to get down to Lewis and Clark Landing, and so what we're proposing to do is Douglas Street will actually be extended on down, and so you'll be able to drive right from Douglas Street right into Lewis and Clark Landing with a new at-grade crossing essentially underneath the I-480 interchange. So it really makes for a nice smooth, or if you're coming out of Lewis and Clark Landing, you'll be able to come right up to Douglas Street, and then you can go south down to Farnham along 8th Street. And so 8th Street's under construction right now, but that work is going to start probably April timeframe. We'll really start getting going on that. We've already got the trees removed. Right now, Douglas Street, there is a Douglas Street right-of-way that does extend straight out to the river, and so we'll be replatting that to bring it in line with the roadway itself. And again, a lot of activation with, again, the roller skating, a large event lawn, things like that. So we really want to make this active and really give an opportunity for the city to get down there and really use this area. And then also with the trails, the trail system itself will be extended, and so the people can ride their bikes and really make that connection from the Bob Carey Bridge on into South Omaha. Lewis and Clark Landing is the other one that we'll have to replat. With that change in the roadway alignment, we're from Douglas Street that's going to come into Riverfront Drive. We're moving that to the west, and the reason to do that is so we can have our large playground. And what we're looking at is a destination type playground like Maggie Daly, something really big. And again, with a lot of neat structures, but where kids can really be down there and playing and have a real interesting time. We are planning, let's see here, this will show it. So the next one, the blue area is an urban beach. And so then next to that, riverward of the flood wall, there'll be a event lawn. We'll have food truck pavilions, volleyball courts, and some other courts are being planned as well. So a lot of activity is planned in that area. So that one will have to be now replatting for the road. Because right now that whole parcel is just one, and it's all platted as one parcel. There's no road right away in there at all. And so we have to replat it, put a road right away in there, but also change the zoning. Right now it's zoned heavy industrial. And so we're to build the facilities down there. We're going to propose it as a CBD with the overlay on it. And then the timeline for construction, we're looking at opening up Jean Leahy Mall in 2022, and then Lewis and Clark Landing we'll open that probably in 23, and then tentatively right now we have HOA opening in 23 as well. It'll probably be a little bit later into 2023. A big issue with Heartland America Park is we have to haul in a very large amount of material and add surcharge so it settles out. There's very soft soils down in that area as well that we're working with. So with that, I'll be happy to answer your questions.
Are there going to be, a lot of people go from the old market to maybe to the CenturyLink Center and back and forth, and now you have to walk underneath. This will be surface. But will there be wider walkways in that area to get from north to south along 10th Street?
Along 10th Street, no, we are not changing anything on 10th Street.
You're not?
No. And we're just staying on the parks themselves.
So they'll have to just cross streets and walk sidewalks like everyone else does along 10th Street then?
Yeah, well, that's one thing that we think will help was with the addition of having 11th Street at grade. And so 11th Street will be at grade, so you'll be able to cross from south to north or vice versa. But then also at 11th Street, at 11th and Douglas, we are adding a street light.
You are?
Yes. And so that'll, again, with the intent being is that it'll be, right now all the lights on Douglas Street are synchronized and will be in the same synchronization, but then we'll have the light for the people, pedestrians to cross, and so there'll be 2 new crosswalks at 11th Street.
I have a question. I'm just curious. Related to the performance pavilion, was Omaha Performing Arts and Holland Center engaged in this process and how this pavilion will function? Yes.
Yeah, we have been working with them very actively because we want to have concerts with it's a perfect opportunity for their concerts as well. And so we've already been talking with them and starting looking at the programming on that. And so they did meet with them, and it's not my area, but they're as far as having additional speakers, because apparently you have to have speakers back further because the speakers up at the front can't go all the way to the back, and so they're getting all that set up and planned for.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other proponents who wish to speak? Are there any opponents? Seeing none, we will close the public hearing. Any questions or comments from the board? May we hear from the city, please?
Yeah, so I'm glad that Chris was able to go through a detailed presentation. This is the first time the planning board has seen anything related to the riverfront revitalization. There have been a couple meetings already with the Urban Design Review Board that's looking at 30 and 60% design of some of these features on Jean Leahy Mall, and there will be other meetings in the future for that portion of the park, as well as the other Lewis and Clark and Heartland of America. One item I did want to just point out with the plat is there is a 20-foot access easement on the southeast portion of the site. This is not for vehicular access, but it is for to maintain fire and life safety building codes related to the adjacent Burlington Place building. So there's just a little bit of coordination that we have to finalize with the separate recorded easement document for that. But outside of that, there's it's very straightforward. It's, as Chris mentioned, it's cleaning up, vacating the right-of-way that should have been done in the past, and just getting it all into one platted lot. Staff recommends approval of the preliminary plat subject to coordinating with city staff regarding the language in terms of the separate easement document, and then approval of the final plat subject to that condition of preliminary plat approval.
Thank you. Any questions, comments? Do we have a motion?
Motion to approve the preliminary plat subject to coordinating with city staff regarding the language in terms of the separate easements document, and approval of final plat subject to compliance with the conditions of the preliminary plat approval.
Second.
We have a motion and second. Lisa, will you please take the vote?
Rosacker?
Yes.
Pate?
Yes.
Morris?
Yes.
Moore?
Yes.
Franklin? Carnes?
Yes.
Motion approved.
Oh, thank you.
Please have one more.
Yeah. Agenda item number 18, case C7-16-227, C10-20-030. The applicant is College of St. Mary. The request is rezoning from MU to DR with expansion of the ACI 265 overlay district, along with approval of a major amendment to the conditional use permit to allow college and university facilities in the DR district with a waiver of section 55-108 height to allow 44-foot tall building. Portions of the property are located within the ACI 2 overlay district and the flood fringe overlay district. The location is 7000 Mercy Road. May we hear from the applicant, please?
Hi, my name is Dawn Danley. I'm with DLR Group. I'm here on behalf of College St. Mary. Address is 6457 Francis Street. College St. Mary is looking to expand their athletic capabilities at the campus, and for the college, they are adding a track team, and part of that was to build a new track facility, and the field house that's being proposed in the land we would like to rezone will house an indoor track and basketball courts and volleyball courts. So the campus is off Mercy Road, 72nd. This corner, this northwest corner of the site is the existing Lead Fitness Center that's got the main gym, locker rooms, offices. The field house is going to go to the east of that, which used to be the soccer field, which has now been relocated to the south. So the project is going to be sitting in this grass piece of land. It's currently zoned mixed use. It had never been rezoned to match the rest of the campus, which is why we are here. Part of the project is also to do a little facelift on the Lead Fitness Center, which is about 20 years old right now. Do some aesthetic painting on the exterior and do some renovations on the inside. Part of this project includes a elevated link between the Lead Fitness Center and the field house, and that will house the weight room and conference rooms, team meeting rooms, and to provide access from the main level of the Lead Fitness Center to a second level lobby in the field house. Access to the site, I'll leave it on this sheet for a minute. The main access comes off Mercy Road, and you can reach the back of the site by going around through the parking lots, or you can come off 72nd Street and get back around to the fitness center. Our parking lots for the new facility will be to the east of the existing, and we will maintain that same access in the final layout. So there's an existing parking lot, and we're just going to have our driveway down to our new parking lots come off that driveway. We're not proposing any access off Pine Street. It will all be enclosed within the campus boundary. That's about it. It's an exciting project. So I coached at College of St. Mary for a very long time, so I'm super excited. So.
All right, thank you very much.
Dawn, real quick, I have a question.
Yes.
City Council staff reached out to me earlier today and had just mentioned there was some grading on site. Is that all related to this project?
Yep. Yes, so it's raising it, obviously, out of the floodplain. We're in the flood fringe, so we're raising it up. Had to have a surcharge, so it's sitting there waiting. Corps' been looking at it, so we're just waiting to get moving as that surcharge settles. So.
Okay.
And part of our application was a waiver for the height as well. 35 foot is max, but we are at average 44. By the time you look at the height of the existing Lead Fitness Center and the actual height of the fitness field house, it'll be pretty much the same because of the grade.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any other proponents who wish to speak? Are there any opponents? Seeing none, any questions or comments from the board? May we hear from the city, please?
Yeah, Dawn summarized the project very nicely. I'll just point out, with the consolidation of the zoning to DR, there is a need for an impervious waiver for the site, which is not uncommon for churches, schools, other civic uses within these residential districts, and that is supported, but it will have to go to the Zoning Board of Appeals. The height waiver is included as part of the amendment to the use permit, and Planning Board has the ability to waive height. We believe the request is acceptable and supportive of that waiver. The site will need to finalize approval of any floodplain development permit and do a minor amendment to pull it out of the mixed-use agreement. Staff recommends approval of the waiver of Section 55108 height to allow the 44-foot tall building, approval of the rezoning from MU to DR, approval of the expansion of the ACI 2 overlay district, and approval of the major amendment to the conditional use permit subject to the 8 conditions in the recommendation report.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? Do we have a motion?
Motion for approval of the waiver of Section 55108 height, approval of the rezoning from MU to DR, approval of the expansion of the ACI 2 overlay district, approval of a major amendment to the conditional use permit, subject to the 8 conditions in the recommendation report.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Lisa, will you please take the vote?
Pate?
Yes.
Moore?
Yes.
Morris?
Yes.
Franklin? Yes. Rosacker?
Yes.
Carnes?
Yes.
Motion approved.
Okay, thank you. I think that's the end of our regular agenda. We do have minutes to be approved from our January 8th, 2020 pre-meeting and regular meeting.
Move to approve the January 8th meeting minutes.
Second.
I have a motion and second for pre-meeting minutes. Lisa, will you please take the vote?
Pre-meeting minutes.
Pre-meeting minutes vote.
Okay.
Did you catch the motion and second?
I didn't catch the second.
I made the motion. Dave said.
Yeah.
Rosacker?
Yes.
Pate?
Yes.
Moore?
Yes.
Morris?
Yes.
Franklin?
Yes.
Carnes?
Yes.
Motion approved.
Okay, do we have a motion for the actual meeting minutes, hearing minutes?
Motion for the last meeting minutes.
Motion and second. Lisa, will you please call the vote?
Moore?
Yes.
Morris? Franklin? Rosacker?
Yes.
Pate?
Yes.
Carnes?
Yes.
Motion approved.
Do we have a?
Motion to adjourn.
Yeah, thank you. Motion and second to adjourn. Please call the vote, Lisa.
Carnes?
Yes.
Rosacker?
Yes.
Pate?
Yes.
Moore?
Yes.
Morris?
Yes.
Franklin?
Yes.
Motion to adjourn, 2:49 approved.
Thank you.